Hello everyone, Phil here, and welcome to DSP versus the Internet. This is my weekly clips react show where I react to clips that members submit every single week. It's a great show. I love doing it. It's a lot of fun. It's a good variety show. And I thank everyone here every week for attending live, and to those who become channel members who submit these clips. This week, FYI, number one, I'm doing the show a day late because I've been sick. I had a really bad head cold over the weekend. I still have it. So sadly, I'm going to be clearing my throat. I'm going to be doing things to try to not cough. It sucks. I don't like having a cold, but I already missed one day, and I'm like, can't keep putting off my work. So I'm here today to tough through it. Also, you may notice something a little different up here. If you're watching at 720p or higher resolution, I have a brand new webcam, and it is full 60 frames and double the resolution of my old one. So it's not only full 60 frames, but double the quality. You'll see way more detail here in the webcam today. So, not that that's a big deal or anything, but it's notable because some people have noticed it. I'm like, whoa, he looks so different. Yeah, 60 frames does look a lot different, for sure. So, all right, so if you like the show, please support it. Consider becoming a member today. Ultra members and submissions tier are the people who get the videos on the show. And, tips are great as well. Looking to hit a tips goal and all of that. But in the meantime, let's begin with our Ultra member submissions for the week. Here we are. And we'll see you. Let me know how the volume level is, guys. Okay? Please let me know. And we'll go from there. Time to begin. Here we go.
Welcome back to Google Foods, everybody. This is the burger that changed my life. If you're new...
So this guy is a food YouTuber, Google Foods. I mean, he's got tons of views, but I've never heard of him before because I'm not in that community. From June 2019, so 5 years ago. Wonder how many subscribers he has. Doesn't say. Look at this. The good old days when he didn't use a $500 steak. Make a burger. This I can actually make without losing my house. Oh, really? So he changed his formula over the years, apparently. It'd be like expensive food. Wow. Okay.
To my channel, you might not know this, but I love steaks. And I can honestly say I've tried them all.
I can definitely see during the era of everything going like full HD camera quality, if he was one of the guys at the forefront cooking this food, on camera, super high quality and stuff, I could get why people like this channel. You know what I mean? Like I compare it to like, I remember when sports went full HD in like the late 2000s, and all of a sudden I had a renewed interest in sports, even though I didn't really care about them, but watching them in HD would like blew you away. So now that all these cameras and everything had updated, I bet people were like, oh, mouth-watering watching this food, right? Look at that. Sloshing the sauce on it.
Burgers, on the other hand, I have made quite a few as well. Monster burgers, fancy burgers, premium burgers, and to be honest, burgers are just awesome. But today I'm gonna share the burger that changed my life forever, and it's easy. So let's do it. This burger has very few elements, so you gotta get them right. This is ground beef from...
And you notice high fat content ground beef, because the fat is what creates the flavor. If you have very low fat ground beef, it will not taste that good. Now there are lean beefs that taste good, like bison meat actually tastes really good and it's lean, but for standard ground beef, you need about an 80-20 mix. You also need that for meatballs as well. You need the 80-20. If you go higher than that, if you go 90-10 or 95-5, that meat's going to be dry and not a lot of flavor.
The USA. It is important to use 80% lean and 20% fat. You need the fat content in order to make this burger right. It won't be cooked medium rare, so you can just buy on your regular grocery store. You'll do just fine. This is the easiest burger you ever made in your life. One of the things that made this burger awesome is getting the ratios correctly. And for me, for my size bun, I like to use 2.5 ounces per patty. You might be thinking that I'm a little bit crazy by measuring it, but trust me, you will get the best results. So 2.5 ounces balls were made for each individual patty. It is the perfect ratio. As you might have noticed, I did not season the meat. You're only going to season it once it's on the grill. When making your balls, I'm just going to recommend you not to compress them too much. Leave some air gaps, because what you want is maximum browning. The browning is where it's at on this burger. By leaving the air gaps when you're smashing it, it will...
You see what I mean? Like, see how high quality his video is? So he bought like a really high-end camera, and he's doing do-it-yourself kind of food videos with super good visuals. I totally understand why this guy caught on YouTube at the time. It's just 5 years ago, right? Yeah.
The fat and basically fried the patty on its own juices, and it's awesome. I also made a super simple and easy sauce. Remember, exact amount in the description down below. I started up with ketchup, followed by mayo, a little bit of yellow mustard. For a nice kick, I'm using this Brazilian hot sauce, and if you never tried it, oh man, it's good. Then I finish it up with Worcestershire sauce, mix it well, and my sauce was done. Alright, the next item is going to be quite controversial, and I know this. Some of you are going to tell me, Guga, that's not cheese, that's plastic. How can you eat that processed thing? That's terrible. Yes, I understand all of you, but trust me, you cannot replace that with this burger. If you want to have the experience...
He's wrong. What he has there, the video volume's low? Okay. What he has there is not even cheese. What he has there is considered processed cheese product. Okay? I'll make the video a little louder. It's literally not considered cheese by any means. They can't actually call that cheese because it's not. It's all oil and fat. There's not enough dairy contained in those slices to be called cheese. You can buy real American cheese. It costs way more than that, and it tastes way better than that. So, shame on him. I mean, he likes the flavor, great, but this is shit. Like, he should definitely be using real cheese. That's really sad. Okay.
You have to use the American processed cheese. The cheap
terrible
stuff. I have other cheeses, but for this burger, I am not using it. Hashtag go easy on Google in the comment section. You know what I'm talking about, all the cheese police. For the buns, I am using brioche buns.
Those look great.
If you don't have brioche buns available in your area, you can also make Guga's buns. It's quite similar, but not the same. And if you haven't seen Guga's buns video yet, make sure you check it out later on. It's an awesome video. But now that we have everything ready, it is time to get cooking. But first, I want to explain the technique because it's 100% about the technique. If not, you won't get it right. The number one thing to remember is heat. If you can't get it hot, this will never work. Instead of cooking your burger, you will steam it, and you will never get the same effect. I recommend it cooking over charcoal because that will get as hot as possible. If you don't have charcoal available, at least get a powerful gas stove and let it preheat for quite a bit. These burgers will cook in seconds, and if you don't have a strong stove like this one, just make sure you let it preheat for quite some time and do it in batches. And you gotta use cast iron. The number one thing you're looking for is browning. You want that Maillard effect hard and well pronounced. If you put it on the heat and it's not hot enough, instead of browning, you'll get steam. And as it's
he's using a technique that some people use where you basically smash the meat down and it becomes thin and brown. So this adds a char flavor, but at the same time, you are squeezing a lot of the moisture out of the meat. I mean, he's using an 80-20 mix, but I don't know why he would be squeezing all the moisture out of it. Like, you don't need to smash it down like that. If you just leave it intact and flip it, you'll get a nice medium in the middle, but it'll be full of juicy flavor. I don't know why he's doing that. I mean, some fast food chains do that. So maybe he's just trying to emulate a certain chain.
You will never get that deliciousness that comes from the Maillard reaction. The second thing to remember are tools. Make sure you use the right one. If not, you would just make a mess and it would just be terrible. You will never experience it the right way. The burger would just be nasty. I'm telling you, I've done it. I recommend these two items. One is like a burger flipper and the other one is a spatula. When you're putting your meat on the grill, it will get stuck like there's no tomorrow. And the spatula is amazing to rip up all that goodness from the cast iron. You need the right tools. Again, don't use this or this. But now that we have everything ready, it is time for me to introduce you to the burger that changed my life. And I say it is enough talking and it's time to smash them. So let's do it.
So he likes to smash his meat. Yeah, and by the way, don't be an idiot. Don't ever try to cook meat on that grill top without a flat top. I've seen people try to do that. Dude, the grease goes right into the fire and just explodes everywhere. and it destroys your food. And by the way, burgers break up and fall through. I see people try to do that. Like, what are you doing? You have to cook it on a flat surface. Like, what are you, crazy? Again, the cheese would be better if it was real American cheese. I understand some people just like the flavor of that cheese, but you gotta go with real American. Even McDonald's uses real American. Also, I would say... Sorry, I'm sick. I would say a little too greasy. That's way too much grease. I would want more sauce than grease. Yeah. Totally. I mean, look how much grease is coming out of there. I understand it's the juice, but dude, that's super greasy. Yeah, I don't know. Plus, he's just doing meat and cheese. There's nothing else on there. No lettuce, no tomato, no pickle, nothing? I don't know. That's going to be a soggy burger. Like, you're going to go to pick it up. The entire bottom bun is going to be completely soaked and fall apart when you try to eat it. There's just too much juice on it. See what he's doing? It's
All
just
right, everybody.
HD. That's
this
why
is the
this
burger
popular.
that changed my life for so many reasons. It is easy to make. Well, you guys saw it. Are you guys ready?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, look. Okay, enough talking. Let's give it a try. Go for it, guys. Dig in. All right, big bite. Smash burger,
Cheers.
baby. Cheers. That's the best burger in the world. Period.
No, it's not. Sorry. No, it's not. It's definitely not the best burger in the world at all. That's ridiculous. Too much grease, no veggies. You need veggies to cut into the grease, so it gives it more flavor. Like, that would be better with it, like, not even enough sauce. Like, there's only a tiny bit of sauce. Like, for me, with my burgers, okay, I would like, if you're going to do mayo, if you're going to do ketchup, if you're going to do mustard, if you're going to do Worcestershire, just put it on there. He mixed it all up, and then only put a tiny bit on the bottom. Yeah. I don't think, and there's 7.4 million views. This is not the best burger ever. Absolutely not. Is it good? I'm sure it tastes good, but it's incredibly unhealthy, and it doesn't have any complementing flavors. All you're going to taste is grease and that fake cheese. That's all you're going to taste in a bite of that. So, 2 thumbs down for me. It's not my favorite burger whatsoever. I would not even eat that burger. That, to me, is not even a good burger. Sorry. Okay.
In February 2014, Russia hosted the 22nd Winter Olympic Games in Sochi. The country had emerged from its Soviet-era shadow and had overcome the economic shock therapy of the 1990s to become an increasingly wealthy and well-integrated global economy.
Very timely video because the Olympics are going on right now over in Paris, France. So let's see what they have to say about it.
The country still had its controversies, but this was going to be an opportunity for it to show off its success on the world stage through the unifying power of sportsmanship. Unfortunately, just 4 days after the Games' closing ceremonies, Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula, kicking off a slow but steady regression from one of the fastest growing major economies in the world into what it is today, which is a petro-state crippled by intense global sanctions and an expensive ongoing conflict. Then there is China. In 2022, it hosted the Winter Olympic Games at the same time as its economy was recording the first year of stagnant economic growth since opening up to global trade and private industry in the 1980s. This marked the end of the single most intense period of economic growth in human history. Many economists predict that China's rapid growth and plateau have many of the same characteristics as Japan in the 1980s and 1990s, when it became the global manufacturing hub before its own real estate market bubble popped, its workers became less globally competitive, and the aging population became a national burden. One of the other less obvious similarities is that Japan hosted the 1998 Winter Olympics at the same time as its economy was dealing with the Asian financial crisis, a downturn that now, almost 3 decades later, it hasn't recovered from. Looking further back in history, there are of course the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin, which, well, obviously had their problems. Later this month, the French Olympics are going to be held at the same time as heightened tensions in the country over a stagnating economy and quality of life sacrifices that are coming because of it. And since my own home of Australia is slated to host the Olympic Games in 2032, it sounds like a good time to ask if the Olympics are a predictor of economic downturns. So, is there a reason that economic challenges line up with the Olympic Games, or is this just an odd coincidence? What lessons could economies learn from these challenges? And finally, if there is a connection here, are these multi-billion-dollar national vanity events really worth it?
Right. What I was going to say is, at least when it comes to the actual physical Olympics taking place in your country, you need to basically redesign your major hub, like whatever the city is that it's going to be held in. You have to redesign that city to basically be the host of the Olympics for just like a month or two, and then that's it. But think about it. You're building stadiums, training facilities, transportation. You're doing all kinds of stuff to accommodate the influx of tens of thousands of people that will be there just for the Olympics. And then when the Olympics are done, what do you need all of that for? Right? Like, that's what happened. I remember particularly in Rio, the Olympics in Rio, which was what, 2016? That Rio already was collapsing as an economy. Then they spent all this money building arenas and everything, and since the Olympics left, it's all in disrepair. They literally never upkept it. It's flooded. It's falling apart. And everyone who lives in Rio is like, this is the worst thing that ever happened to us. You destroyed half the city of Rio de Janeiro because you wanted to have the Olympics here. Why did you do that? Right? So I totally get it. Like, it makes you look really good for like a month or two. But then does it really benefit your economy at all? Like, what's the benefit of really having the Olympics, right?
Every year, the number and size of data breaches goes up. It's becoming harder and harder to protect your data online, and brokers buy this data and sell it to companies who will annoy you with spam mail sent to your house or robocalling you at random inconvenient times. That's why we partnered up with Incogni for this video.
Oh.
Because these daily...
Bro, that's great that you teamed up with them, but I'm going to skip that bullshit.
cultural
Okay.
representation, and with the help of the International Olympic Committee, which Kubertine co-founded, the dream quickly became a reality. 14 nations participated in Athens when it was reintroduced. Now the IOC recognises 206 countries and their respective national committees that participate in the quadrennial event where rivalries can be settled in a variety of different competitions. In a way, the Olympics serve a mostly non-lethal battleground promoting healthy competition amongst those choosing to flaunt their achievements and potential of their most skilled athletes. But as always, there are other motives behind this expanding array of festivities and the value it all represents. Basically, the Olympics has arguably become the most lavish spectacle for bragging rights on the planet, with opening ceremonies and facilities becoming more and more elaborate over time. In fact, from the very moment the IOC was founded, one of the ultimate goals was to find ways to radically monetize such a massive global celebration, though this wasn't an easy task at first. For most countries, the Olympics looked like a tremendous liability. A good example would be the chaos that followed Montreal's failure in 1976. Delays in construction and cost overruns for a new stadium resulted in $1.5 billion worth of debt for the Canadian taxpayer, which is a huge burden for any government, but especially significant in 1976 dollars, and it took over 30 years to pay off.
Wow.
At the time, it was an expensive public service that most taxpayers just weren't that interested in. But this all arguably changed when Los Angeles stood as the lone bidder for the summer of 1984. Not only was the US city able to leverage its position for better terms with the IOC, but its pre-existing stadiums and developed transit systems gave it a considerable leg up when compared to other hosts in the past. Corporate sponsors, principally US-based multinationals, were allowed to put Olympic symbols on their products, which were then marketed as the official such product of the Olympics. For LA, it was a great chance to embrace the new media and branding opportunities. So then, what exactly continues to encourage countries to participate in the present day, and why does the arrival of the Olympics often coincide with crashes? Well, for the first time since 1932, LA proved that the Olympic Games had the potential to be a profit engine and as a way to promote their metropolitan legacy
did they make
with
money
a
doing it?
$215 million operating surplus. After this monumental achievement, cities all over started to make considerable bids to show the world how successful they were as well, even if said success was founded on false notions propagated by misleading figures. Using this hubris, the Olympic Committee tapped into the growing competition to host the Games, and they now know they can ask for more and more impressive resources for their games, generating billions of dollars with each campaign. They do everything they can to show collaborative benefits. One of the most significant examples would be how the IOC and host cities often advertise a large number of temporary jobs for locals. In the case of Paris, the 2024 event has produced approximately 78,300 organisational roles and 60,000 tourism jobs, and has employed 11,700 construction workers for the infrastructure development.
But they're so short term. You know, it's they only last a few years before, and then what? A year after, possibly, just to get rid of all that stuff, and then that's it. This is not long term. It's just a temporary thing.
Developments required to host the Olympic Games. In total, the Paris 2024 Olympic Games have created approximately 150,000 jobs worldwide. Some of these infrastructure investments often boast lasting benefits to the country's residents, and the IOC often alludes to these on its website. One of them being the train route built during the 1964 Japan Games that reduced travel time to and from Tokyo. That, or various public amenities such as housing that's built for visiting athletes. In 2014, Sochi, Russia diverted $44.3 billion for the construction of non-sports related infrastructure. This is why, when looking at it from another perspective, the Olympics is a game in and of itself, focused on PR. Countries tend to host the Olympics when they're doing very well, like during periods of economic booms. They do their best to use the Olympics as a sign that their country is prospering. But this has made their situation almost poetic because they fall into the classic Icarian trap, flying too close to the sun. In other words, if a country is doing better than it ever has been before, it doesn't really have anywhere to go but down. Especially if that economic growth has been predicated on unstable industries like natural resources or real estate speculation. A similar statistical phenomenon happens with other public pissing contests like the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. To get that successful at such a young age, you need to take some major risks and be prepared to bend the rules, which is why so many Forbes 30 Under 30 people end up in prison for fraud.
That's great. Forbes 30 Under 30 go right to jail. Well, another thing you gotta realize, right? If you are truly at the top of your game, why do you need an advertisement to the world saying we're at the top of our game? You already are. People in countries who need advertisement are you need that boost to grow, right? Maybe you're on an upward trend, and now you want more people to know you're on an upward trend. Come join us. But they're right, like, if you're using the Olympics as a way to saying, oh, look, we're at our best, well, then what do you need the Olympics for? You're already at your best. You're not going to grow anymore. You're destined to go down. You're already at the tippity top, right? So if anything, perhaps what the Olympics should be is a way for a country that is starting to twist from a downward trend to an upward trend to say, hey, come trust us. We could do this. You know, maybe you don't believe it, but we're going to do it. We're going to handle it, and we're going to show you why our country's awesome. Right? It'll be a PR for our country. Maybe a lot of people didn't know that country was as good as it was. That's how it should be used. So to already go to a place that's already at the tip of affluence and success and then have the Olympics there maybe doesn't make sense. But like he's saying, if you're already being recognized for being popular, a lot of people are already going to be on the downward trend. Look at the people who went right to jail, Forbes 30 for 30. And now it backed out. This YouTube app is something else. Now we got to fucking fast forward. Sorry, guys. I literally just hit resume and then it backed out for no good reason. I think we're right here.
Of course, the standard disclaimer here is that budget figures from China are often unreliable, especially if it would make the government look bad or wasteful, so it's possible these estimates are on the conservative end. Then there's the argument the IOC and embarrassed government institutions make regarding the new living spaces for athletes. Their media strategy is to promote the idea that these structures will be left behind for long-lasting benefits, but what the IOC fails to publicly mention is that they require a mandatory minimum of 40,000 hotel rooms. That was a tall order for the Rio Olympics in Brazil, which had to build 15,000 new rooms, plus they ended up destroying homes and pushing residents out of the designated property, which was explored in a recent video. And although Russia diverted $44.3 billion US for construction of non-sports related infrastructure that continues to be in use, their 2014 bid and construction costs far outweighed the supposed benefits. The debt and maintenance fees alone will cost the Russian taxpayer almost $1 billion a year, which is far from affordable when their current geopolitical conflict is taken into consideration. So why not just make the games cheaper? The games used to be a fairly modest affair. The focus leaned on the traditional value of countries coming together to admire athletic performance, far more than the marketing strategy. But as the Olympics has morphed into a major promotional spectacle, the pressure to one-up other countries on the global stage has slowly turned it into what it is today. The IOC likes to make the argument that aside from infrastructure, that tourism revenue is so great that the games practically pay for themselves. But again, this is a small contributor to the reported revenue, if not completely non-existent. In fact, there is the argument that the Olympic Games actually have an adverse effect on the tourism industry. The The Council of Foreign Relations, or CFR, found that security, crowding, and higher prices that the Olympics bring dissuade many visitors. And while
Yeah, well, think of it this way. Let's say, like Rio. People think of Rio de Janeiro as a place to go for vacation. There's all kinds of touristy things to do. It's a tropical location. Were you going to go to Rio during the Olympics if you were going for a tropical, relaxing vacation? Of course not. There's going to be 2 to 3 times as many people there than a normal time. So it's actually counterproductive to a place that normally would have healthy tourism to have the Olympics. The Olympics should be held by somewhere that maybe wants to now create new tourism, correct? You want to have new people come that normally wouldn't have shown up. And that's a way to rope people in with the Olympics. But if you already have a giant burgeoning tourism industry, why would you want to interrupt that industry with the Olympics? It doesn't make sense.
Barcelona, Sydney, and Vancouver all saw slight tourism increases, London, Beijing, and Salt Lake City all saw decreases in tourism the years of their Olympics. Of course, all of this might be a noble sacrifice, right? Sure, general amenities, hotel rooms, future taxation, and large stadiums burn a massive hole in the proverbial bucket, but isn't there still the opportunity for employment? Well, according to post-game investigations, the answer to this question is no. Another study cited by CFR found that only 10% of the 48,000 temporary jobs during the 2012 London Games went to people who were previously unemployed. The reality is that for a lot of countries, they know that these events will not be profitable. And let's be honest, not all major government projects are always that fiscally sound. Sometimes money is wasted on vanity and building up global recognition. A country like China in 2008 had a lot to prove to the world, and the Olympics was the perfect way to do that. What this means, though, is that any other country that needs to be a bit more beholden to its taxpayers needs to realise that it's competing against countries that are effectively funding a global national advertising campaign. Another thing worth mentioning regarding the construction projects is that once the games are over, countries and their host cities are left with the task of maintaining these massive multi-million-dollar structures.
Right.
That is,
Do they
if
even
they
need
choose
them?
to take care of them at all. Just take a look at Brazil, a massive economy with resources
go.
rivaling many superpowers. Here's a fun game. Which is an image of Chernobyl, and which is an image of a less than decade-old state-of-the-art Olympic facility? The Olympic Games were held here in 2016, not too long ago, and yet their stadiums have fallen into a state of disarray. At this point, it would almost be more expensive to bring them back online than they would be to build in the first place. And they aren't the only country that has decided to abandon these expensive venues. Plenty of nations like Germany, Bosnia, and Greece, the country holding the Olympics origin story, all chose to leave their once top-of-the-line facilities to the ruins of time. But this is just the tip of the iceberg when one considers the social ramifications. The Olympics is a spectacle that is often more costly than it is profitable. This is a measurable fact. However, there's still the argument that Olympic advocates make about the PR game that is, if nothing else, a way to put your country on the map for spectators to see what you can do. The problem is, exposure isn't always a good thing. Making the choice to embrace the spotlight reveals everything, the bad as much as the good. The social backlash following the Rio Games, with the troubling contrast between the slums and the stadiums, was a total disaster. And the Sochi Games brought a lot of attention to Russia right as it was about to invade its neighbour. The 2022 Games in China also coincided with issues like re-education camps, strict lockdowns, and the protests in Hong Kong. Many of these countries with questionable models for governance buy the Olympic media bundle with the expectation that the world will see them as a shining example of economic triumph with a lasting progressive legacy. However, these cases show that winning the expensive bid often does quite the opposite. These kinds of soft power maneuvers can have a real impact on global perceptions and influence over things like foreign investment, tourism, and even trade deals or sanctions.
There you go. So what he's basically saying is, your intention may be, oh look, we're up and coming, or we're at the top of our game. The Olympics will actually promote our country in a positive way, but it does the opposite, because now everything in your country is put under the microscope, and every blemish and every flaw and every pimple is exposed to a world audience. So I'm sure Brazil thought that the Rio Olympics were going to help them, and actually did completely the opposite, right? There you go. All right. Well, a good start to our DSP versus the Internet React show for the week. 2 good videos. Thank you to the people who submitted them, the Ultra members. If you become an Ultra member today, you can submit said videos for next week's show. All right. But in the meantime, let's split the part here. I'll come back with part 2 and more right after this.